KFI AM 640. It's later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. No video simulcast tonight. Our video director, Daniel, has the night off tending to some family business. And I always say family first. So Daniel and the video simulcast will be back tomorrow, but we have plenty to cover. Plenty to cover. I know you're upset. No video simulcast. You get used to it. You like to see my pretty face every single day, or maybe Mark's, because Mark has a
fan club,
like an OnlyFans club. That's the only way to describe it.
Yeah, it's too bad because I'm looking really good today.
Yeah. Don't you have a birthday coming up?
No.
You don't?
No.
You sure about that?
No, let's move on.
Okay.
It honestly feels weird without the Momigos.
Yeah, you get used to it.
Like
you get
interacting with them in real time.
It's almost like we have to go back to boring, stale, everyday radio where you just hear my voice. You have to imagine what I look like. You have to rely on the dulcet tones of my beautiful sotto voce.
Yeah.
Anyhow, back to reality. We still have a wonderful and jam-packed show for you. There's some things we have to talk about. You know that Kobe and Gigi mural, which was vandalized some time ago? Well, they vandalized it again. But I'm going to talk about it from a very different vantage point. And I'm going to connect it to this other story about this high school track star who was stripped of her title for an inappropriate celebration. I believe that those two stories are connected. And here's a hint. Mark, I know you remember maybe about a year ago, people were complaining about the LA District Attorney, George Gascon, how he was so permissive. He wasn't enforcing the laws. And the argument was because George Gascon wasn't enforcing laws, criminals figured this out and they were more inclined to engage in criminal behavior because they felt that there were no consequences. You remember that argument at least, right?
I believe that may have been in heavy rotation here at KFI.
Yes, it was. I'm going to make the argument. I want you to start thinking about this now.
Yes.
That the George Gascon argument and laws having to do with adults also applies to kids, young people, and bad parenting.
Yeah, you're the don't spare the rod type. So I can tell where this is going.
You know this is going, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make the connection. Badass kids turn into criminals, okay? So if you're mad about George Gascon, or you were mad about George Gascon, I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a healthy bit of criticism of parenting leading up into that point. They didn't just wake up on a Saturday morning and say, well, hell, I'm going to be a criminal because George Gascon's in office. No. There's a developmental process. There is a growth process. You kind of make your way into criminality. Lack of consequences for children, lack of consequences for an adult. Kind of the same thing, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And I have a really long and extensive final thought. And I'm going to tell you right now, it has to do with this most recent revelation that ICE agents will not have to will not even have to provide warrants for upcoming arrests. They have been told to effectuate more arrests even without warrants, even though that's in direct opposition to the Constitution. So I got plenty to talk about tonight. Plenty. It is unfortunate if you're just tuning in. No, we don't have the video simulcast tonight. I'm sad. You're sad. We're all sad. I know that. But we don't have the video simulcast tonight because Daniel, our video technical director, is off doing personal stuff tonight. And I can't have him come in all the time. Just on, he has family to deal with. I have family to deal with. You know how it is. Family is first. But the video simulcast will be back tomorrow night. And I have an unfortunate feeling that you and me, Mark Ronner, we're going to be more agreeing than disagreeing tonight. And that was not my plan.
Well, that bores everyone, doesn't it?
Not necessarily, because I have my pants on in this studio and you don't have your pants on because we are not having a video simulcast, and some people take advantage of that.
Yeah, if nobody can see, it's all theater of the mind tonight.
No, but really, we have video screens and I can tell that you're not wearing any pants, unfortunately.
Well, I did it for you. You're welcome. To quote J.D. Vance, have you said thank you even once?
You ungrateful bastard, you.
Seriously.
It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're only live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app tonight. Video simulcast back tomorrow.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640 is Later with Mo Kelly. Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. No video simulcast tonight. It'll be back tomorrow. And once again, unfortunately, the Kobe and Gigi Bryant mural in downtown L.A. has been vandalized. The mural, if you don't know, is located at 1361 Main Street in L.A., and it depicts Kobe with his daughter, Gigi, when she was a toddler. Artist Slow_Motions created the mural, if you didn't know, shortly after Kobe, Gigi, and 7 others died in that helicopter crash back on January 26, 2020. Hard to believe it's more than 5 years ago. After restoring the piece of art, you may know that Luka Doncic of the Lakers donated money to have it restored after it was first vandalized. It is now vandalized once again. It doesn't surprise me. It does sadden me, but it also reminds me of what I've already believed and known, that we live at a time in which there's just a dearth of respect. There's a complete lack of respect for anything and everyone. I'm not condoning graffiti, but I'm old enough to remember when graffiti tagging even had its own rules. You didn't tag art. You didn't tag over art. You didn't deface art. You didn't put your tag on someone's house or someone's private property. Now, all bets are off. Me personally, I don't have data to confirm this. I can't show you a study which will verify this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right just from the eyeball test. This, to me, in a more general sense, is a product of kids who've grown up not ever being told no, not knowing boundaries, not knowing consequences. And remember when you probably saw the video to all those youngsters who were tagging and defacing the Metro train maybe a week or so ago?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And I was looking at that. See, those are a bunch of kids who didn't have their asses whooped when they were younger. And this goes back to my rant when I was talking about I am firmly in support of corporal punishment, spanking, which is different from domestic violence, which is different from child abuse. And I gave the argument then. It was about teaching young people, me included, boundaries, consequences, so that the world didn't have to. So you didn't end up in jail. So you weren't doing stuff which was illegal that you would get, punished by the world. We live at a time where parents don't want to tell their kids no, like it's stunning their growth. And then you have a lot of loudmouth kids who talk back and what have you. And then when they get old enough to start doing criminal things, that's why you'll see them run up on a train and just deface it for everyone to see, and also do it on video so they can commemorate it. There is a connection and correlation. In fact, I would even go so far as to say there's causal relationship. If you don't do this when they are a kid, when they get to be an adolescent and young adult, it is too late. And then they start engaging in this more egregious behavior. And people don't understand. It's like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Here comes my George Gascon comparison. George Gascon, for all the people who did not like him, me included, was that he was not enforcing the laws as they were written. Made it a much more permissive society. And criminals figured out, well, if I do this, I'm not going to jail. And if I do go to jail, I'll be out in 24 hours because of the laws are this, and George Gascon is that. And we saw this rise in crime because the criminals figured out there were no consequences. Well, that also translates to how children are raised. The moment children realize that they could talk back to their parents or talk back to their teacher and there are no consequences, and while I know you know this as an administrator of a school, parents are more quick to defend their kids and blame the teacher than we were coming along. If my teacher told my parents that I was acting up, they would look at me and say, what did you do? Because an adult is telling me that you are not acting as you should or as you were taught. You must have been doing something wrong. Now it's almost like we want to create this environment where kids aren't responsible and accountable in any way. You know what happens eventually? They get older and still believe that they're not accountable and they cannot be held responsible. There is a direct connection. I'm positive that there is. I can't quantify it for you, but I damn sure can qualify it for you. Don't tell me that the kids who were defacing the Kobe and Gigi mural, and don't tell me the people who were defacing that metro train in plain view for everyone to see. Don't tell me that the kids are going to the street takeovers and then all of a sudden they are looting a 7-Eleven right across the street. Don't tell me that those kids were taught consequences, parameters, and boundaries when they were younger. Because as sure as I'm sitting here, if they were, they wouldn't be doing that. They don't just wake up one day after a stern, discipline-filled upbringing and decide, you know what? I think I'm going to go out and tag a metro train today. Because all the other stuff that got my ass beat as a kid, you know what? I don't think that applies anymore. I was deathly afraid of my father. And that's why I didn't do half the stuff that I did. Because an ass whooping was waiting for me with my name on it. I didn't want to go to jail. Why? Not because I was afraid of a record. I was afraid of having to ask for my father to bail me out or have to deal with him. These are all things which are connected. And as much as we complained about George Gascon, there is a connection here. There is a correlation. After all these years of telling our kids, oh, you can do whatever you want, Tommy. You don't have to worry about it. You know, of all these years of rationalizing and having these discussions with kids and trying to debate your own kid, my parents never debated with me. They told me what to do. And I either did it or there were consequences. Why? Because I was a child and they were an adult. I didn't like it. I didn't even understand it. I didn't appreciate it then, but it also kept me out of certain trouble. And if you have kids now who have no respect for anything or anyone, not personal property, not someone's business, not someone's house, not someone's elders, no respect for nothing, and you wonder why, there is a path in which they traveled. They didn't just all of a sudden wake up one day and say, I'm just going to be an a-hole. I'm just going to be a juvenile criminal. I'm just going to do what I want and talk back to adults because I know there are no consequences. No, that started before that. It was before. It was back when they were 5, 6, 7, 8. Because by the time they get to be 15, it's too late. It is way too late. And then you have these kids who don't understand and they want to act like the world is so unfair. I don't understand it. And when I talk about this high school athlete, track athlete, who was penalized for an inappropriate celebration, I am going to connect those dots as well. Because kids grow up not knowing where the line is. And as parents, our responsibility is what? To tell them, teach them, and demonstrate to them where that line is. Because if they know where that line is, or if they try to step over it as a child and get their ass smacked like I did, then hopefully there's more of a likelihood of a reference point when they get to be an adolescent of what not to do. I promise you, if you're tagging trains and that kind of thing at 14, you've been doing a lot of other hellish stuff prior to 14, and there were no consequences. How can you turn on the TV and not realize, oh, that's my son out there? You know, parents got to take responsibility. We want to talk about George Gascon enforcing the laws of the land. Well, you need to enforce the laws of the household. I promise you, we would be better off if more parents actually enforce the rules of the household as opposed to letting kids do whatever they want. Oh, no. They want to be their best friend. Oh, yeah, I'll just let them drink in the house. Oh, yeah, I'd rather drink here than out there.
This is actually across the board, too. I want to make sure that everyone is clear. You're not talking to parents of any class, stratus,
race, ethnicity, religion.
No, this is parents across the board, because I've seen parents of privilege getting cussed out by their kids, and I've seen parents within the impoverished realm have kids where they don't know where they are. If both result in some kids either running onto a train and tagging or going over to the Kobe mural and tagging.
If you feel so comfortable enough to cuss out your own parents, I'm quite sure you feel okay with disrespecting someone's property. There is a logical progression. It didn't start with the tagging of the train. It didn't start with the street takeover, which then turned into a looting of a 7-Eleven. There is a progression. You work your way up to that. And if they're doing that at 15, there were signs along the way at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm sure of it. I'm positive. Okay? Now I know that Mark Ronner, and I'm going to use him as a foil because I love to use him as a foil. He is a well-adjusted individual. But I'm quite sure somewhere along the line, someone tried to show him boundaries, and maybe he fought against that.
Not sure how much I should reveal on the air.
You can talk, but you can be general.
I got the living daylights kicked out of me when I was a kid.
But I'm not condoning that. But I am saying there was a level of intervention to keep you out of prison.
To some degree, yeah.
That's all.
There are people who are surprised to this day that I didn't wind up there, but they're dying.
See? And look at you. You got your ass beat, and you're here on KFI.
Yeah.
Boom.
You could have been in prison or dead. And is it fair to say that you engaged in behavior along the way could have led to either or both?
To say the very least.
That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. I know that there's a lot of stuff that I did not do because the memory or the fear of the in-house consequences, that if I did not have that memory and fear to reel me back in, I most likely would still be in prison. I would be another statistic. It may not have been tagging or graffiti, but it would have been something criminal in the name of just having fun and just being an irresponsible teen. But I didn't end up there because my parents told me no. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640 live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. Only the iHeartRadio app tonight in KFI. No video simulcast. Will be back tomorrow.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI, it's Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. No video simulcast tonight. Just good old-fashioned radio. Talk radio. And I'm going to connect this next story to the last story because there is a thread which is woven through all this. And it can be boiled down to simply, we need to tell our kids no more often for their benefit and for our collective benefit as they get older. I want to tell you about a high school track star who was stripped of her title after celebrating her win. And you may think, well, what's wrong with celebrating a win? Well, time, place, circumstances, it all matters. And her parent, looking at the video, was her dad. Her dad should have told her no in advance.
A state track champion has been stripped of her title over what state officials call unsportsmanlike conduct.
Clara Adams says she was banned from the podium at a potentially history-making race for her victory celebration. Video shows Adams taking first place in the 400-meter final on Saturday in Clovis. The North Salinas High sophomore says she waited until her opponents were off the track. And then her dad handed her a fire extinguisher. She proceeded to spray her shoes, recreating an iconic moment from 2004 when the track champion Maurice Green did the same thing. But Adams says state officials immediately stripped her of her win and banned her from competing in the 200-meter race, which she was a favorite to win. The California Interscholastic Federation, the CIF, has not publicly commented.
Okay. I played CIF. Is it harsh, the consequences? Yes, it is harsh, but it doesn't mean that it was unfair or outside the boundaries of the rules. Every CIF athlete has to sign this waiver. It says, I have read and understand the requirements of this code of conduct. I understand that I'm expected to perform according to this code, and I understand that there may be sanctions or penalties if I do not. And if you read it, there are two specific components. One is under the respect portion, disrespectful conduct. Do not engage in disrespectful conduct of any sort, including profanity, obscene gestures, offensive remarks of a sexual or racial nature, trash talking, taunting, boastful celebrations, or other actions that demean individuals or the sport. Is that open to interpretation? Yes. But if you leave it open to interpretation, it may not go your way. That's where parenting comes in. And there's also responsibility of the athlete that every single athlete, including this track athlete, had to sign. Role modeling. Remember, participation in sports is a privilege, not a right, and that I, the athlete, am expected to represent my school, coach, and teammates with honor on and off the field. Consistently exhibit good character and conduct yourself as a positive role model. Suspension or termination of the participation privilege is within the sole discretion of the school administration. Okay? If you leave it up to interpretation and the thing that you may do is borderline, you may think it's okay, but those onlooking may not. And those who have your future athletic career in their hands may not. I'll give you a perfect example. I never got more hate as a high school referee than when I let me tell you the whole story. I'm doing this game at Miracosta High School, and this is for summer league. So people think it's all relaxed and everything. No, but I'm a high school ref. I'm there using high school rules. We're going to go by the high school rules. For example, if you dunk before a game during warm-up, that's an automatic technical. I don't care if you don't like the rule. Okay? That's the truth. If you pull your jersey over your face during the game, it's like, oh, because you want to protest the caller. You're so mad. You don't want to show your facial expression. Pull your jersey over your face. That is an automatic technical by the national high school rules. It's not even subject to debate or discretion. If you slam the basketball on the court and you don't catch it and it rises above your head, that's an automatic technical. And Twala, I bet you may not know this either. Did you know that you can give someone a technical even after the game is over and time has expired?
Wait. Game over.
Mm-hmm. In other words,
expired.
Time is expired. Crowd's going wild. Team thinks they've won by 2 points.
Yes. It's been called for the most part, and you do something like some gyrating move on the basketball on the ground.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. This player, I gave a tee at the beginning of the game for dunking. Okay. And I explained to him, and his coach even backed me up. Those are the rules. You cannot do it. I gave him a tee, and then he wanted to jaw jack me. I can't remember the schools it was, but I remember I was at Miracosta High for the summer league, and he kept jaw jacking me during the game, trying to be smart. His team, quote unquote, won the game. Time had expired, but according to the rules, until both officials, me and my partner, have left the court, and that means like left the court as in left the gymnasium. Mm-hmm. The game is still on. After time expired, his team was winning by 2 points. And this is a summer league game, so I really don't give an F, okay? He was jaw-jacking me, and he started using profanity and pointing at me. I rang him up with a T, blew the whistle, brought both teams back on the court, shot 2 free throws for the other team. Oh, now it's a tie game. We're going into overtime, and the team lost the game. And parents were hot at me. But it's not my fault that you as the participant either don't know the rule or don't want to play within the rules and then don't understand is my discretion as far as the assessment and penalty. A technical foul is at the discretion of the official as far as unsportsmanlike conduct. That's the tie-in. When we're talking about sportsmanlike conduct and also CIF rules, you don't get to decide what is acceptable. I do as the official. Now, I may not have done that if it were an in-season game, but for a summer league game, you bet your ass I rung them up and dared them to say something else.
Wow. Can a team be banned from being part of the CIF?
Absolutely.
If they are just that flagrantly disrespectful of the rule?
I've had situations where, let's say you get a certain point where the game is not in doubt and you have one team which is intentionally getting technical fouls. They're just making a mockery of the game. You can call the game right there. Forfeit. Yeah, you can. You can toss the players. You can toss the coach for not controlling the players. And then you can just end the game and have them forfeit, making a mockery of the game. Yeah, that is within the power of the officials. And the only reason I talk about that is this was a pre-planned celebration, provided she won the track event. And it was because what they don't tell you is the father brought the fire extinguisher to the event. They brought a small fire extinguisher and, and gave it to his daughter so she could use the fire extinguisher on her shoes, like her shoes were on fire and that kind of thing. And she ended up being stripped of her title. And I don't have any sympathy because instead of encouraging that boastful celebration, which is grounds for penalty, suspension, being stripped or whatever, he should have told her no. And if he would have told her no, we're not here. And that's the lesson I always try to explain to young people. You don't get to decide how people are going to enforce the rules or the law. That is the common thread. And you can say, Mo, you're just being a moralist. You're just thinking. I'm just trying to make it real simple here. If you want to protect young people, if you want to prepare young people for the world, you have to tell them no. And the easiest way for me to explain that is through sports. Because I get to tell people no all the time when I'm on that basketball court. When they start doing things and saying things because they watch it on TV in the NBA and they think that it's part of the game where you hassle a ref or you point at them or you gesture to the crowd and you try to somehow, gain some sort of advantage or disrespect the referee. Nah, son, I got a whistle and also know the rules and you're going to get a technical foul and you're going to sit your ass down. And if you say anything else, I'm going to throw you out of the game. You don't have to like it. That's how life works.
Do you ever deal with that, or how often have you ever dealt with that with parents?
Oh, just about it. It depends. Actually, let's carry this over to the next segment.
Okay, yeah.
And I can better, you know what? And Stefan, let's change the bumper because Metro can kiss my ass. They don't need any help from me. Okay. We'll talk about them some other time. This was more important, but so save that question because I definitely want to address it on the other side. It's later with Mo Kelly. Spank your kids before they grow up and break in my house, please. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI, Later with Mo Kelly, live everywhere, the iHeartRadio app, and only on radio. No video simulcast tonight. It will return tomorrow. We were having a conversation, or I was ranting more explicitly, about this high school track athlete who was stripped of her title for this fire extinguisher celebration where she had a fire extinguisher handed to her by her father. It was a prop. It was planned in advance. She won her 100-meter sprint, sizable margin, was going to go on to the finals, and then she got this fire extinguisher and used it on her own shoes. Like her shoes were so hot, they were on fire, and she was stripped of her title and her opportunity to move on to the next event. I was fine with it. I was making the argument that sometimes you have to tell your kids, no, you can't necessarily participate in the stunt. I read the CIF rules and how it's up to the interpretation of the officials at the meet. You can't break the rules and then decide what is the acceptable punishment. And that's why I say you got to tell your kids no, so the world doesn't get to levy the punishment. I use sports as a perfect example because it's a somewhat safe environment to teach kids about parameters and consequences to their choices in life.
Looking at this story and how the father played a part in his daughter being disqualified. She didn't go and get the fire extinguisher on her own. Her father wanted this to be part of the celebration. He wanted this as much as she did. In your time officiating basketball games, have you ever had any parents that you've had to deal with who have acted out above and beyond even some of the actions of these reckless kids?
Oh, yes. I remember I was doing a 6th grade game at the Torrance recreational park. It's on right next to Wilson Park. And I had a parent come out on the court who wanted to fight me. Now, I was back in my 30s. I was in the prime. I was ready for this fool. And I told him, I said, don't come out on this court. You don't want this. And the only thing that stopped the fight from happening was at the games, they had Torrance police in the venue. And the police came in and stuff. We live in a time, and that was a good 20 years ago. We live in a time where parents feel so entitled to say and do whatever they want, and kids also act out on that.
Right.
That behavior that leads to the tagging of the train and everything, that permissiveness, that you can draw a line. There is a connective tissue and a thread which runs through all this, where kids learn this behavior that there aren't consequences or they're allowed to do certain things in certain environments. And there are people like me in a sports context or in a martial arts context, if they happen to be in one of my classes, will have to remind them that that's not how it works. And once you cross that line, you don't get to decide what the punishment is. You don't get to call me an MFer on the court and say that I can't kick you out. For example, you don't, as a parent, don't get to come on the court and then don't have any say when Torrance Police steps in and not only removes you from the building, but they can arrest you. I decided not to file charges, but he didn't touch me. But I'm saying I could have pursued it and kicked him out where he would not have been allowed back in the facility at all because he presented himself as a threat. So, I mean, you know, there are too many examples I can tell you of how kids usually do what the parents allow or either promote. And that goes right back to the whole track and field discussion. She did that because her father not only condoned it, but encouraged it.
Yeah, and participated.
Yeah. And now she's upset about, well, this isn't fair, or the punishment doesn't fit the crime. You abrogate, you forfeit your say-so when you cross the line. And that's how life works. That's how it works.
I swear, I cannot stand the usage of the word fair, especially among young people. Until my daughter has tried to use the word fair, I'm like, fair is for fairy tales. We live in the real world. You would not be in trouble. You would not have been called out, would have been called to the carpet by your teacher if you were doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
You are obviously cutting up. And if you are called to carpet because of that, that's the result. You don't get to act out. And then when you get in trouble for it, say, well, everyone else was, and think that that you're okay with being upset just because you're the only one being singled out. It's not how it works.
Hopefully the lessons that I try to impart in martial arts in the dojang on the basketball court, and I used to do baseball as well, but I just do basketball now, translate so they see the connection where if you overstep and work outside the rules or boundaries, there are consequences, penalties, whatever you want to call them, and that applies to life. If you want to go out there, my mom would call it showing your ass. If you want to go out there and show your ass and act up, then you're going to let the world deal with you, and you're not going to have any say. And it may result in you losing your freedom. It may result in you losing your job. It may result in you losing some sort of money or income. That's why you got to teach them young that certain behavior is unacceptable. It doesn't have to be illegal to be unacceptable. And you do it for their greater good and growing up later on in life. They're either going to learn those consequences and boundaries as a child, or they're going to learn as an adult. The difference is if you learn as an adult, it's usually going to be much more an expensive lesson. It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.